Okay, so the other critical component that you will interact with quite regularly, almost all the time, is the audio mixer interface. So that down here on the start menu is X-Air Edit. So we're going to load that up. Normally what you would do is you would load this on one of your monitors. I usually put it on the right-hand monitor, and then vMix will be on the left-hand monitor, and you can see both all the time simultaneously. So I want to quickly walk you through the key parts of this mixer that you need to know. So first off, this is simply an interface to control the hardware mixer that's sitting next to you. The mixer will continue to work if you close this software, but this software is your way of adjusting the mixer. There are no physical controls. There are also apps that you can download that allow you to control the mixer from a phone or tablet, as long as you're on the same network. But we won't worry about that. We're just going to worry about the interface that you use right here on your computer. So let's just kind of go through the interface really quick. Across the top, right now it's on this mode that says Mixer, and that's just kind of showing us a full thing for each channel strip, top to bottom. If we click on the next one that says Channel, it switches the top portion view to a bunch of information about whatever channel is selected. And then going across, I'm not going to go over a lot of these because you're never going to interact with them. You're simply not. But what you do need to know is that you should put it on input view every service, because when you add mics for different instruments that you haven't been using before, this is the only place where you are going to make an adjustment. So we're going to talk about that in a second, but first let's just go across the bottom portion of the window here, which is all of your individual faders for all of the individual microphones and inputs. So we've got wireless mics 1 and 2, which have the same colors as the microphones. Always remember, you can only use one of the blue mics. You can't use the handheld and the headset simultaneously. You can only use one. Same for the white mic. You can use one or the other. Then yellow through gray. These are the input patches that you have on the sides of the stage. By default, I have it set up where behind the organ, the cables are just plugged from one of the boxes and go over to the piano side of the stage, and you can plug your microphones in over by the piano. But you can also unplug one of these colored cables from the side behind the organ and plug a mic directly in there. Either way works. It's just a matter of what's closer to, where you want the microphone to be. But they are color coded, as are the cables, to make it very quick and easy. If you plug the yellow cable into the yellow input jack 3, you're going to have that microphone showing up on the mixer where it belongs in yellow. DI 2 and 3, the DI box that has multiple DI inputs is over by the electric piano, which is on the side with the actual piano. And you can plug a guitar into this, you can plug a bass into them, and then they come straight through to inputs 8 and 9. Left-hand keyboard is the digital piano over by the regular piano. The keyboard right is where you would plug in the keyboard that's by the organ. There's a mic over the drums, which is right here on input 12. We use 2 mics for the piano, mostly to get them close because they're right in front of the speakers. So we're trying to minimize how much they pick up the speakers. Lectern left, lectern right. This vMix media, if you play music or you play a video from within vMix, the sound will come here and you will be able to adjust that up or down. So these are your main inputs. Then on the right-hand side, we've got the output that it's going to. So by default, it's almost always, I think it will always load with main left and right selected. And main left and right is what's going to the church sound system, to the speakers. So with this selected, if you turn up or down any of these microphones, it's going to turn up or down the volume going to the speakers. Below that is vMix left and right, which is just a stereo left and right buses. And these are what send the sound to vMix. And it's all the same microphones, but you can adjust the volume of those microphones completely separately for the live stream than what's happening in the church. And the reason why that's so important is that in the main left and right, you never want the piano mics on. There's no need. The piano's plenty loud and the mics are right in front of the speakers, so it's best to have these faded all the way down. Same thing with the drum mic. The drum is more than loud enough, and we don't want that going through the sound system. And so you should always have these faded all the way down to nothing on the main left and right, but then mix them to taste on the vMix. So you'll wear your headphones and listen to the sound coming into vMix, and you can adjust them to what sounds good to you. And then other microphones, they may just, depending on an instrument, if you had a trumpet, for example, you would need to mic it if you want to hear it in vMix, but it would be another thing where you might want to have it turned all the way down because a trumpet is super loud and will be plenty loud in the chapel without a mic. So that's your output blocks. There's a master volume for each. This should never be changed. It's really important. This main left and right should stay at -6. I calibrated a bunch of things for your sound system with this being at -6. And if it's higher than that, let me put it back, it's going to cause some of the other presets that were created, for example, the handheld and headset wireless mics, are going to be totally wrong. But I created presets for you for both mics that you can access with the Stream Deck. So Mic 2 headset, when we click that, everything's calibrated pretty well as a starting point for the headset. You may not need to touch anything else. But if you have a guest minister or somebody that doesn't usually use the headset as the one using it, and they speak really loud or really soft, or the mic position is bad, you might need to make an adjustment. But typically, if they're going to use a headset, you will click on this headset button and do these things before you turn the mics on. Right now, I don't have to worry about feedback because I muted the house sound system, but if you click Mic 2 handheld, you should have noticed that the volume went up significantly louder, and that's because the handheld mics are not nearly as sensitive, and they need more input gain. So that's the main reason I wanted to show you this, is that see right here where it says mic gain. When I click Mic 2 handheld, notice it goes from +8 to +20. So now it's on the handheld, it's on +20. If I hit headset again, it goes to +8. This input gain is what is a sort of adjusting the microphone volume to be properly used by the mixer. When microphones are plugged into a mixer, microphones have very different levels that they put out. And so the very first stage of a microphone being plugged into a mixer is called the mic gain. And this is where you essentially match up the microphone level to be a good usable level for the mixer. And this level affects everything after it. So if you turn this up, it will increase the volume both for the house mix, but also for the vMix sound, because it's at the very first thing. It's a preamp. It's critical. It's not just a, if you want to mess with it, it's something that you need to have adjusted properly. And so I'm going to mute the sound in the chapel, in the church. So I just did that by muting the main left and right. And now I'm going to turn on the blue mic, Mic 1. And you should see now that we've got these levels showing right here. And if I click on blue Mic 1, I will see the levels right up top here. Now, setting the input gain, and actually right now it's set perfectly, you want to see this level up here on the left hitting -15 at the loudest points of whether it's an instrument or a vocalist. When they get to their loudest, it should be hitting and maybe going a little bit past -15. So what you're seeing now is perfect. Now, if this gain was set super low, like -12, notice that now it's only going up to -30 or so. I'm not talking any softer. With the gain this low, if you were trying to bring up the volume of this microphone in the church, you could turn up this fader down here as high as it'll go, and it probably will still be too quiet in the church, and you'll say, hey, that microphone's not loud enough. You don't want to turn up the master volume over here because that's going to turn up everything and throw the balance off of everything. What you want to do is turn this back down and then use your mic gain on that channel to get it right where it needs to be so that it's right about -15, maybe a little hotter, but not much. And now when you bring up your volume, it's going to give you a good solid volume right at about 0, which is what we want. At 0, if, plus or minus, it should be nice and loud. We shouldn't really have to crank it up beyond that. So with the mics that you use, I'll leave that there so you can see the levels. On the mics that you would use for different instruments, it's not just a matter of certain microphones having a different input level, what they do, but it also depends on what kind of instrument are you miking. If it's a very loud instrument, you might not need as much gain to get to that -15 ideal volume. And if it's a really soft instrument, you may need more. So that's why, because you guys don't have consistently used instruments where every week yellow mic is on, a violin and red mic is on a trumpet, and you get what I'm saying. Because you change things every week, there's really no way around needing to adjust the mic gain for what you've set up for that particular week. So the first thing you should do when you get here is, when your musicians all get in place and start to practice or rehearse, you should look at which mic is connected, and being used for what, and then set the input gain properly so that it hits that level. Then after the input gain is set, you can then mix the volume. Right now it's muted, but if this had volume, you would mix it for the sound system and get it where you want it. And then you could, after you've got the sound system in the church sounding the way you want with all the mics, you can go to your vMix bus, put on your headphones, and you can mix everything to sound good for the live stream. But this mic gain affects everything, both main and vMix, so it's super important to get them set properly. And to use that to get things where you want, and don't change the master output level. If it's helpful for you beyond just having the color coding, you can right-click on any of these channels and you can change the name. So if you wanted this to say violin instead of wired mic 3, you could just type in violin and save it. You could do that all across. If the DI, if this is a bass guitar one week, you can label it bass guitar. But what's cool is, if you want to go back to the way things were set initially, up here in the upper right of the mixer interface, there's these things called snapshots. So if we navigate through, for example, you can see mic 1 handheld, mic 2 lapel, which we really don't use, mic 1 headset. These are presets that only impact that one microphone. But this one that says starting settings, which is the very first one, if you have this selected and then you hit the go button, it will set everything back to exactly where it's supposed to be. And I don't know if you can hear it through my own microphone, but as soon as I clicked that, it unmuted the main left and right, because that's the way that it's supposed to be set. You could see it took all these mutes off. It did a bunch of things, and it gives you a great starting point. And it'll rename these back to wired mic 3, 4, 5, 6. So at the beginning of each service, since the last church might have completely changed things around, you can always click on starting settings and then hit go and bring everything back exactly the way it was before. And the mute buttons at the bottom, they mute everything. So they'll mute the microphone not only for the house sound system, but also for the live stream. So typically, your drums and piano will be volumes all the way down for house, but then when you click on vMix, the volumes will be wherever you want to adjust them so that it sounds good in your headphones. So that's one of the main reasons why there's two separate mixes, is that there's certain things that need to be mic'd so that people watching the live stream can hear them, and that you don't want to have on at all in the house. So having two separate mixes allows you to just mix completely separately what's going to vMix and what's not. But then also, there might be things where volumes need to be set differently for one versus the other.